Good afternoon, my conscious co-creators. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. I am very, very pleased that you are all here with me today. Today is one of those shows, it's just me and you. I haven't done one of these shows in about 6 weeks or so it's about time to have one with just myself. So let's get into it, of course, even when it's just me and you. I do start off with my blog post from a couple of years ago, and this one actually I think is kind of related to our topic today, which we'll get to in a moment. So today's blog post is entitled, "The Creation of Art is a Celebration of Life Itself." There is a desire in people, a desire to express, to bring forth our voice, our movement, our images. We are natural born creators, constantly creating with our ideas, our feelings, and our energy. These creations are not just a form of amusement for us, nor are they a type of artistic indulgence. When we create art, it comes from a deep place inside of us, born of our torment, our joy, and everything that has happened to us. Whether we paint, dance, sign, act, or build a skyscraper, it does not matter. Every form of creation is an act of celebration, a celebration of life, of spirit, of love. Some art is created from our pain. Often it is created from our longing. It can even be created from our despair. No matter what the source of our inspiration is, the result is the same. Our soul is crying out to be heard, to be seen, to be felt. And in that act of allowing our internal world to be expressed externally, there is a profound statement, one that touched others, sometimes around the globe. People who never knew us, never heard of us, never knew our name, are suddenly captivated by what we have created. For there is something in our creation that resonates with them on a deep level. We all want to celebrate life. Not always our own life, but life itself. The spirit within us moves us to step out and share something magical with others. Perhaps the way our spirit moves us is to move our bodies, and we dance and perform great physical feats. For others, it is the simple act of using their voice to sing, to act on stage, or to simply give a speech. Some of us use our hands and grab a medium that appeals to us, and we paint, we draw, we sculpt, or create something beautiful out of discarded trash. Each of these art forms touches us in a different and often unique ways. Some forms of art will never appeal to certain people, while others will flock to an opera, the ballet, or a concert, or a gallery. There is something out there being created that appeals to someone. Every artist finds their tribe, one way or another, or rather, their tribe finds them. For when we are brave enough to put our works of creation out there for all to see, surely The people for whom it is meant will find it. We do not have to like all art, yet all art finds someone to like it. For the one thing all art has in common is that it is ultimately a celebration of life. And sometimes what resonates with us is just the act of celebration, and the form is inconsequential. So the next time you think about creating something new, just remember that you are celebrating something important by creating it. Let's celebrate life in as many forms of expression that we can. Do you have something burning inside of you waiting to be expressed? Whew, that's a mouthful. So I wrote this a couple of years ago. I think it was after my wife and I went to an art gallery. One of my wife's clients is an artist who does very unique expressions. Um, and my wife's been working with her for quite a while, um, as her therapist. And it was just going around walking the galleries. Some things I liked, other things my wife liked, and it was kind of interesting to see the contrast. And I think from walking through this exhibition of all these different artists, and it was a lot. It was a pretty big exhibition down in Soho. It kind of came to me how much, like, even the art I didn't like for whatever reason, it was all a creation. It was all a celebration of something within the artist. And it was interesting because as you looked at the different pieces of art, even though some of them, I totally didn't like, you could see be, by the colors, by the images, by the composition, by what the artist had put together, that some artists were creating out of their pain or out of loss or out of grief or sadness. Others were creating something very joyful and colorful and vibrant and energetic. Others were creating out of love. Others were creating out of the beauty of nature around them. Others were creating out of pure imagination. And just seeing the contrast of all these different kinds of art and the variety and the breadth and the depth, it really helped to remind me how important art is and how we don't have to like all art. We don't have to enjoy every form of creation. My wife loves opera and ballet. Me, I can, take it or leave it. There's certain operas I kind of like, but I'm much more a rock and roller. I'd rather go see an old rock band from the 70s or 80s or 60s than go to an opera. My wife is such a good sport and she's open to everything, so she can enjoy rock and roll as much as she enjoys opera. But every form of art does not have to appeal to every person. And it's okay to have our own unique tastes, our own unique likes and dislikes. And so this blog post was kind of born out of that understanding. that sometimes art is created for the pure sake of art. Other times it's an expression. And sometimes you can see it's like the artist is working out some unconscious thoughts, challenges, emotions, and how their therapy is their artwork, and they're working out maybe some struggles or some challenges that they have internally that they don't have maybe another way of expressing it. And again, I'm talking about visual art, but the same is true for books and music and dance and just all kinds of expression, all kinds of art. I mean, me myself, I'm probably more of a writer, although I did take art classes in college and I did create a bunch of things, back when I was young. And I've always said to myself, one day, quote unquote, one day, when I have time and I'm not so busy doing so many different things that I'll get back to creating art again because I really enjoyed it. But it's okay. It's okay that not every piece of artwork appeals to every person. I My wife knew this guy in Beijing in China who was an artist. And what he used to do is he'd find like different pieces of metal and different pieces of plastic and different things in the garbage, and he'd glue it together and put it together and create little animals or people or scenes or different things, inanimate objects out of all these little pieces of garbage. And his stuff was beautiful and it was brilliant. And it's like, as you look at it and you look at the little components and you're like, oh, that's a screw and that's this and that's that. And how did he put that all together to create this thing that looks like a bicycle? Like, how did he even think of it? And I really loved how creative he was, literally with garbage. And that to me is like the beauty of an artistic mind and the beauty of art itself. That with art we can take something that was garbage, something that was discarded and thrown out, and put it together in a way that creates something new and different and whole, and just the imaginative process of how they put it all together makes it such a fascinating thing to behold. So I wonder, what's your artwork? What do you put together out of nothing and create something new? And maybe it's not a work of art. Maybe it's bringing together a different group of people for a fascinating event. Maybe it's creating a new business, solving problems. Maybe it's, creating relationships with people. Maybe you're a teacher and your art is how do you teach your students and keep them engaged and interested even when it's a subject that's boring to them. There's so many ways we get to express ourselves. And sometimes I meet people and they think they're not that creative, but then you listen to what they do and how they do it, and it sounds incredibly creative. So, who is an artist? We're all artists, every single one of us. From the poorest person in a village in a third world country to somebody living in the middle of New York City. Does not matter. And when we can be open We don't have to like every piece of art we see, but to just appreciate the creative process. We don't have to like every book that's written. And look, not every book that's written is well written. That's okay. We all have our own opinion. We all have our own tastes. We all find different things appeal to us. And sometimes different things appeal to us at different points in our life. And maybe something we never appreciated as a child or a teenager or a young adult, when we get older, suddenly we have a newfound appreciation for it. Our tastes don't stay the same. But if we can just learn to appreciate the creation of whatever that thing is, even if we don't like it, maybe we can learn to just appreciate life a little bit more, regardless of the source of creation. Well, that's my blog post for this week. Again, the title of it is "The Creation of Art is a Celebration of Life Itself." And you can always find my blog posts at my personally branded website, theconsciousconsultant.com. And of course, you can always find it on the Talk Radio website at talkradio.nyc/blog. And if you like my blog posts that I've been reading each week, you might like my book, Everyday Awakening. Yes, an artistic expression, just my thoughts, my ideas. And you can always find the link to my book on Amazon at everydayawakeningbook.com. And I do have several other books as well, at least chapters and other anthologies, which you can find in the show notes. So, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into our topic for this week, which is the hidden power of sadness. Yes, sadness. And I'll get into why I want to talk about sadness and how perhaps a different way we can approach sadness where it can truly serve us. So, you're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. It's just me and you this week. We do this live every Thursday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on talkradio.nyc and all over social media. And we'll be right back in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
And welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. This week, we're going to talk about the hidden power of sadness. And why are we talking about it this week? Well, because I had a little bit of an incident this past weekend with sadness. Not that anything particularly happened to me that was sad, but I think my relationship to sadness shifted. I was doing the ceremonial work that I do with my wife, just the two of us. And it was quite interesting what happened, during the day as we were doing our practice, because I kind of started off in a place of confusion. A place of confusion of like not feeling like I really knew what I wanted, not knowing why I do what I do, not just all this stuff. And the confusion was kind of secondary to it. But then, um, for some reason, this gentleman who I knew who passed away 6 years now came to mind. And he was a very unique individual, an Israeli who had immigrated to the States many years ago, was a little bit older than me, not a lot older, maybe 10 years older than me, but who had a very fatherly energy about him. And he was sharp. He was smart. He could size somebody up in an instant, and a very, practical, grew up on a kibbutz in Israel. A real beautiful soul. Not everyone's cup of tea, but I loved him. And many people in the group that I knew him through, many people there really loved him. And there was this sadness because he was gone, he had passed. And I just was, thinking about some of the things recently that I've had to deal with, and how much I would have loved to have been able to go to him and ask his advice and get his opinion on things. And I really started missing him. And I really started feeling sad. And that sadness really lasted a while. And there was a lot that kind of came from that. And I'm gonna get into that throughout the show. But there were a number of kind of lessons from my experience with sadness that I wanted to share with everyone, because sadness is a tricky thing. And how people respond to sadness is really fascinating. And it's really interesting that my blog post this week happened to be talking about creating art, because some of the greatest art has been created from sadness. Some people, they use their sadness and their pain to help them to create something, and like that's how they process it. But most people, we find, they actually suppress their sadness. They try and avoid it. That they hide it at all costs. They don't want to feel it. They don't want to touch it. And then what happens is it builds up and builds up and builds up under the surface until it becomes something so huge that they're terrified of touching their sadness. And the thing that I've learned, and I can't say that I always thought this way, but sadness is not bad. It's not good. It's just a feeling. It's just an emotion. It's just a response to something, typically loss or pain. And it can be a personal loss. It can be a loss for someone else. It can be a death of a loved one and the loss of their impact they're going to have on the world. Like when we hear of a favorite musician or a favorite actor who passes away, and there's some sadness because we'll never see any more great works from them. But what I've come to realize is there's a real purpose to sadness. And I'll let you know what my takeaway from my experience with sadness this past weekend and what the purpose for me was. And it's not a flaw. It's not a mistake. And it's not a something to avoid. Sadness is our body's way of getting us to pay attention to something, to stop, to slow down, to listen to that invitation. Now, look, I'm not saying we have to wallow in our sadness. I'm not saying that we have to, just marinate in it and sit there for weeks and months and years. Now, yes, there's some forms of sadness that are more difficult to get over than others, like the loss of a parent or the loss of a child, God forbid, or loss of a sibling or of a best friend. But what is the sadness actually doing? Why are we having it? Well, one of the things, this isn't my realization from this weekend, but one of the things in thinking about it is it's an invitation for us to stop and slow down and pay attention and to remind ourselves of what really matters in our life. Sadness it's not about being in pain for no reason at all. It's not the universe trying to torture us. It's an invitation from ourselves, from our own body, from our own nervous system. The sadness is an invitation to pay attention to something. And yeah, it can be uncomfortable. And yes, it can be difficult. And yes, it can be inconvenient. And yes, it can interfere with all kinds of other things in our life. It can interfere with our work, with our relationships, with quote unquote stuff we have to do. But if it's interfering for a reason. If it's calling to us to pay attention to it, it's calling us to pay attention for a reason. And that reason is something we probably don't often pay attention to. And so when we come back from break, let's talk a little bit about what happens when we don't pay attention to the sadness. What happens when we don't give ourselves time to grieve and be sad? What is it that we're missing? Because maybe if we understand what we miss by not being sad, that can help us to have a better relationship with sadness. So, you are listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. Our topic this hour is the hidden power of sadness, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
And welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. So we're talking this hour about not a very happy subject. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's the hidden power of sadness. And one of the things that's important to remember is what it costs us when we avoid sadness, when we numb ourselves to it, when we stuff it down and we don't give it room to breathe. First thing it does is it makes it harder for us to feel joy. It makes it harder for us to feel anything. And not only that, but when we don't pay attention to our sadness, it actually controls us. In fact, one of the things I've noticed when I work with people who often have experienced depression is normally the depression is a suppression of their feelings. And most often the feeling that's at the root of that suppression is sadness. So when we don't allow ourselves to feel sad, that can lead to depression. When we don't feel sad, it numbs us to feeling anything. And look, it's like we can't avoid it because as long as we're human beings, as long as we have life, as long as we're breathing, there are going to be things that happen that make us feel sad. And as I mentioned before, with my experience this past weekend, this one gentleman, Shmuley, who died, I had real feelings of sadness about him. And that then just connected me to the sadness in general. And I was crying and I was feeling the pain of sadness. And after a while, it wasn't even just about him. It was just the sadness in general. And it brought me to places of sadness, not just for losing him, but for other things that I've experienced in life that are now different, now no longer around. Groups, communities that I was part of that are now no longer together and no longer in my life in some ways. And that was hard. But there was a gift in it. And I'll get to that gift in a minute. But really, it's one of the things, not just from this weekend, but just in general in doing my work that I've learned is that sadness is part of living life. And if we stop thinking about sadness as something to get rid of, something to fix, something to avoid, but instead learn to honor it, learn to be present to it, learn to give it some room and some space to breathe. Maybe it's doesn't have to control us in an unconscious way. And maybe we can just live a little bit more, learning how to live with sadness. It's so interesting with the people I work with. So often there's this judgment around these difficult emotions to feel: sadness, pain, anguish, hatred, anger. But really, they're all just energies that our body is feeling. And when we stop judging them as good or bad or supposed to have or not supposed to have or want to have or don't want to have, and just be present to, like, that's what is in the moment. The more we allow ourselves to have those feelings, to have those even painful moments, the less control they have over us, the less grip they have over all different parts of our being, the way we show up, the decisions we make, the choices we make. When we give these emotions time and space, and I've worked with people over and over again. And the one thing I can tell you with certainty is when we give a little more space to these unpleasant feelings, they actually start to dissipate. I usually use as an analogy, it's like having water in a cup. And when the cup is filled with water, there's no room. It's all filled up. But if I give it more space, if I pour it now into a bathtub, it's got more room. And so it's spread out, so it doesn't fill up as much space. Or if I take the water and I take it out of the bathtub and I just let it roll on the floor, now it gets even thinner and it's spread out further. So the more room we give to our sadness, the less heavy it feels, the less dense it is, the less difficult it is to honor. And look, whether we pay attention to the sadness or not, it's there. This was one of my lessons from this past weekend: is just because I don't allow myself to feel the sadness does not mean it's not there. It is there. And the interesting thing is, by not allowing myself to feel my own sadness, I'm less able to be present in the moment with myself, with others, with anything I'm doing. But after I allowed myself to open up and really feel the sadness, afterwards came stillness. Afterwards, I was able to be more present and be more still, and really just be without distractions. Because underneath, if we're feeling the sadness or any kind of challenging emotion, then we don't want to be present. We keep finding things to distract ourselves all the time. But that doesn't serve us, not in the least. So yeah, sadness is not something to get rid of. It's not something to fix. I'm not saying we should feel sad all the time. We should just feel sad when we feel sad. And I just remember one teacher I had many years ago. She used to say, there's no emotion so strong, so difficult, that if we're truly present to it for 7 days straight, that we can't get through. Now, when she said present to it, she was talking about turn off the phones, unplug the TV, close the curtains, and just sit with it for 7 days and truly, truly be present. And she was talking about even the worst, most horrible emotions, like the loss of a child, the loss of the love of your life, the loss of whatever. And it was really interesting hearing her say that and really reflecting upon it years later. I realized that's actually what the Jewish tradition of sitting Shiva is all about. And it gave me a new depth and a new appreciation for that ritual. And for those of you who are not Jewish or don't know what that means, in the Jewish tradition, when we lose an immediate family member, we're supposed to cover the mirrors, not play music, not sit on anything soft or comfortable for 1 week, for 7 days, basically. And the idea is to sit and be present to our sadness and our grief over the loss. But then at the end of the 7 days, you open the curtains, you take the fabric off the mirrors, you can sit on whatever you want, you can listen to music again. It's like 7 days, you're present to it, you're done with it, it's time to move on with life. Not to mean you're not going to miss the person that you lost. I mean, we still like light a candle every year on their anniversary of their death. There's still that hole in our life. But it's this ritual to give us boundaries around our grief and our sadness, to just be present to it for 7 days, and then you can let it go. So there are opportunities, there are rituals in our lives, whatever your background is. I'm sure there's some kind of ritual around loss, around grief, around sadness. And if there's not, create your own. Do a little research. Ask ChatGPT for a ritual to help you process your sadness or your grief. You'd be surprised how creative it can be these days. But the key is if we're judging the sadness as being bad or wrong, it's going to be hard to be present to it. It's going to be more difficult. There's going to be more resistance to it. So to me, the first fundamental step is stop judging it. Not just stop judging sadness and grief, but like stop judging all emotions. Like don't even make joy like a good emotion. It's just also an emotion as well. I mean, yes, we all enjoy, there's that word again, we all enjoy the good feeling emotions much more than the not so good feeling emotions. But they're all just energies. They're all just something to serve us, to show us where we are. So, yeah, if we stop judging the quote unquote bad emotions and stop judging the quote unquote good emotions and just say, you know what, this is just how I'm feeling right now in this moment. Don't make it right or wrong. Just this is how I feel. Like maybe we can be a little more present to it, a little more aware of it. Maybe then we can live life a little more fully. Oh, but I didn't tell you my ultimate lesson from the sadness I felt this weekend. And you know what? I think I'll tell you that right after this break. So, this is our last break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about, for me, what was the hidden power of sadness. And yeah, we'll wrap it all up together and finish off the show. So please come back after these messages. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
All right, so we've been talking about the hidden power of sadness, but what is I mean, we've been talking about sadness, but what's really the power of sadness? What's the gift behind sadness? Well, for one thing, when we allow ourselves to feel sadness, then we can feel more joy and more happiness. And when we allow ourselves to feel sadness, we actually have more space to feel and be present to other people and other things. It creates a deeper trust in ourselves because now we're not trying to shut away and put away the emotions that don't feel so good. But for me, what I realized this past weekend, as I thought about missing my friend and all these other events, opportunities, experiences that I had, was I realized they were so precious to me at the time. And I don't think I was really honoring them in the moment. Being with certain people, having certain experiences, living life was such a precious gift, and having the opportunity to really experience and be with these people and these experiences, that for me, the hidden power of sadness was being able to honor life much more so. It was like seeing how these things were in my life and now they're not, and I feel sad over it. It actually helps me to honor what's in my life right here, right now, today. That I'm going to speak up more with people and let them know how much I appreciate them, how much I'm glad that they're in my life, how much these interactions I love and enjoy. Because the sadness was a precious gift, because it showed me the preciousness of life and our experiences. Because being connected to my sadness opens me up to be able to love that much more, to be able to be connected with myself, with others, with what's happening in the moment that much more. And when I can do that with sadness, I can do that with happiness, with joy, with elation, with all the other emotions that feel so wonderful in the body. And it can give me more freedom to feel. Because if I can allow myself to feel even the most painful of feelings, then I can allow myself to feel the most joyful of feelings. So there actually is great power behind sadness. Because when we connect to our sadness more, we connect to ourselves more. We connect to life more. We can be more present to more of what's going on. We can notice the flowers in the park, how the sunshine feels on our face, how a warm breeze touches our skin. We can notice so much more what feels right and what doesn't feel right for us. Yeah, because allowing ourselves to feel sad allows us ourselves to feel, period, to just feel. So I hope all this talk of sadness helps to maybe shift your own relationship to sadness, helps you to find maybe a new way of treating the sadness in your own life. I'm sharing my own personal experiences. I'm sharing what came to me and what I learned from my own experience this past weekend, and how the sadness helps me to appreciate life that much more. And I'm hoping maybe by me sharing what I went through this past weekend and what I experienced, that maybe my words can help you to shift your own relationship to sadness. And if I did that in even just a little way, a small way, I think that can be huge for you. So let me know. Sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the live streams and to the comments, but let me know. How do you feel about sadness? What did my little monologue this hour around sadness, what did it touch upon in you? And in the future, when I do a show without a guest, is this the kind of thing you would like me to touch upon in the future? I'd really love to know. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I hope you really did get something out of this show. So just a little reminder, if you did miss any part of today's show, you can always catch the replay on any of the major podcasting platforms, whether you like Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, whatever you love to listen to podcasts on. You can find the Conscious Consultant Hour. And of course, you can always catch the replay on talkradio.nyc. Um, if you did miss any part of today's show, please check us out. And you can always catch the live stream video on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And next week, I will have a guest, I promise. And don't forget, oh, yes, we have a new show starting tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. We have three wonderful co-hosts, Bruce, um, Nataj, and what's the third person's name? I forget now. And Angie is coming to you with Serving Up Success with a Splash. So make sure you catch that show. All right, everybody, take care. Thank you all for tuning in this week. We will talk to you all next week.